How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Solar. Now, the Delta Pro from EcoFlow has been the most popular portable power station on the market over the last couple of years. And we just got the upgrade to the Delta Pro 3, which does bring in quite a few new features. Instead of going through all the features, I just want to point out the 3 major features that I think would put you over the edge in terms of the upgrade. Now, this is whether you're buying one or the other for the first time, or you're swapping out a Delta Pro, maybe selling that off and then upgrading to the Delta Pro 3. Also at the end, we'll at least touch on one other DIY alternative so you can look at those and compare and contrast to see what best fits your application. So let's jump into it. So major upgrade number 1 is right here on the back side. We have the Delta Pro on this side, and the Delta Pro just had one input when it came to charging with solar. This input is 1600 watts. Now for the Delta Pro 3, let's take a closer look as it really stepped it up. So with the Delta Pro 3, they have these doors that kind of tuck away for any of the covers here in the back, which is pretty slick, but that's just a bonus. The real benefit and the first major upgrade that might really put you over the edge on the purchase is we now have that 1600 watt input, which runs 30 to 150 volts and 15 amps max for your current. That is our high voltage side for solar. We've added an additional charge controller for a low voltage side, which goes 11 to 60 volts and goes up to 20 amps. So this makes it substantially more at 2600 total watts of solar input compared to the 1600 watts on the Delta Pro. So right now on the front side, you can see just with the high voltage side, we're actually over 1600 watts. I have a little bit of what's called an over paneling setup for that high voltage side. So we are getting 1600 watts plus for a large swath of the day. But now let me plug in the low voltage side to see that step up. So we just turn that on, and for the Delta Pro 3, you'll see the charge controllers kind of jump around a little bit as they settle out to the MPP point on the curve. So you can see we're all the way up at 2300 plus watts in terms of our solar input. And again, that is a substantial upgrade than what you were getting with your Delta Pro. And I think it's a major factor if you need a little bit more solar input throughout the day. So the second major upgrade that would probably make you want to consider purchasing the Delta Pro 3 over the Delta Pro is now the Delta Pro 3 has 240 volt split phase output in one unit. And that's what I was running here, where I was charging my Tesla for the last few hours. And I've done that over the last few days, pushing this unit to close to 4000 watts, which is the maximum continuous AC output for the Delta Pro 3. Now that's compared to 3600 watts output for your Delta Pro. And then also to note, the Delta Pro is 3.6 kilowatt hours in terms of its capacity of the battery, and we are 4 kilowatt hours for the Delta Pro 3. Now those are nice upgrades, but the number 2 major upgrade is having the 30 amp 240 volt L14-30 outlet here, which is the major use case I use this for. I usually want this as a backup for my home to power the entire home, and having this plug on a single unit allows me to do that and plug right into a generator inlet plug, which is connected up through a breaker that has an interlock in my main panel. That's the cheapest way to configure this unit to your home so you have some capability in a blackout scenario to power your own home. So that is my number 2 major upgrade for the Delta Pro 3. And it should also be noted, if you want to charge your Tesla, which is what I was doing, you do need to plug in a neutral to ground plug, which is going to connect your neutral to ground, and then that's going to give the signal to your charger that everything's good and it will actually run. Without this, your charger will not run and you're going to get an error. So just a note for you. And now today we're only 2:17 p.m. I'm still bringing in 2.22 kilowatts of solar. I've stopped my AC output. I was doing about 4000 watts out for many hours. And if we look at our bar chart, you'll see throughout today, we are almost at 10 kilowatt hours added in terms of energy from solar input. That's super impressive, and that's just because now we have substantially more solar input. Remember, we have a pretty good amount of the day left, so we're probably going to end up around 12 or 13, depending on how much sun we get the remainder of the day. And then if we look over to other, or I scroll down car charging, even though the labels are incorrect, it says watt hours, that is kilowatt hours. So I took all that solar and also some of the battery I had this morning. So I put 13 kilowatt hours into my Tesla, which is extremely impressive from a portable power station point of view. Now this should be noted, this is with pretty darn good sun, but I've done this pretty much for 3 days in a row with similar results. So this unit has absolutely no problem putting out 4,000 watts from AC side and bringing in its full solar capability. So either one of these units are kind of in that high end of the DIY setups, but they're not going to be able to completely power your home all the time and offset your monthly power bill. If you're interested in something like that, that is going to be probably more of a professionally installed system, even though we will have DIY grid-tied systems coming up on the channel. A great place to start is just to get an idea, what are we talking about on size and cost? And there'll be a link in the description. You just put in a little information on your home and what kind of setup you have. And then within a couple minutes, you'll get that size and then also the estimated cost after the 30% tax credit. If this is something you're at all interested in, I recommend doing it sooner rather than later. I know in my state of Illinois, there is chatter that our utility will be taking net metering away at the end of 2024. For us, that is a huge deal, and that would make a massive difference on the overall system itself and whether or not you need your own batteries and just the overall cost. So I do recommend, if that is something you're thinking about in the next couple of years, at least start doing your investigation now, because once net metering goes away, that is a massive deal, as California saw when they went to the NEM 3.0 standard. Now jumping back to the third major upgrade, and that is just the overall sound from this unit. Now this might mean nothing to you because the application sound isn't critical, but if you're powering like a home office out in your yard, the difference between the Delta Pro and the Delta Pro 3 is massive. And if you're doing different video calls, the Delta Pro is probably too loud for that. You'd have a lot of background noise, and it runs about 58 decibels. Now the Delta Pro 3 is much better. It's been running this whole time as background noise, but it's more in the 48 decibel range as I tested on my Apple Watch. Now decibels is not a linear scale, and the difference between 48 and 58 is pretty massive. So if noise is a critical factor for you, the Delta Pro 3 would be a major upgrade. Now there's other benefits, like the integration of your extra battery here is just much better on the Delta Pro 3 compared to the Delta Pro. The cable management and a ton of other small tweaks, but those are the three main ones that I would consider in terms of upgrading from a Delta Pro to a Delta Pro 3. You'll see links in the description below the video, and you're going to want to compare and contrast because there is quite the price differential forming between these two. And with special sales, the Delta Pro might be a great price for you. And if the three main factors of the additional solar, the 240 out, or the reduced sound isn't really critical to your application, the Delta Pro might be for your consideration. Also below, I'll put a link to Signature Solar, and that will be an alternative, a DIY kit that you kind of build out yourself with an EG4 6000 XP all-in-one unit, and then also the EG4 battery. Now that, compared to the Delta Pro 3 with an extra battery, is actually less cost, and even on the battery capacity side, this would be 8 kilowatt hours, and that EG4 battery would be 14.3. So if the portability of a portable power station isn't really critical and you want something that's always going to stay in place, at least you should consider doing a DIY setup because they're pretty easy and approachable by most homeowners. Let me know right below the video if you guys have any comments. I always love hearing from you. And if you need a little bit more information on the solar panel setup I have coming into the Delta Pro 3, you can check out this video right here where we were talking about inline fuses, but it shows the full setup on the high voltage and low voltage side. And then if you need just in general some guidance on wiring solar panels in series, parallel, and series parallel, check out this video right here. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on one of those next ones. Take care.